more than almost any other day in my presidency. June 26, 2015, made it clear not only how far we've come as a nation, but also how far we still have to go. We're now awaiting the Supreme Court's ruling on whether same-sex couples nationwide have the equal right to marry.
This case meant everything to me in the memory of my late husband, John Arthur. Our journey began when we realized that we wanted to marry after being together for more than 20 years.
Thank you so much. I know a little stressful. You know, I'm waiting on a whole bunch of stuff coming down alongside here. I know. It was a huge moment, and I knew the decision would have an enormous impact on the lives of so many Americans who just wanted their love to be recognized the same as everyone else's. This morning, the Supreme Court recognized that the Constitution guarantees marriage equality. In doing so, they've reaffirmed that all Americans are entitled to the equal protection of the law, that all people should be treated equally, regardless of who they are or who they love.
I'm here today in front of our nation's highest court because my home state fought the recognition of my marriage to John. Sitting in that courtroom on June 26, 2015 was crazy. I burst into tears. For the first time in my life as an out gay man, I felt like an equal American.
Progress isn't always a straight line. We zig, we zag. But when enough people work hard enough for long enough, together, minds change. And when minds change, eventually the country changes with it in ways that bring us closer to our founding ideals. And that, more than anything, is what gives me hope.
So I've had the joy of allowing several artifacts to be displayed at the Obama Presidential Center Museum. Among those are our ceremonial marriage certificate, our wedding rings, and the bow tie that I was wearing in the Supreme Court on June 26, 2015. I can't think of a better place for these items to be on display because hope and change are what they represent. That marriage license, it represents our hopes and dreams of almost 21 years to be able to say, I do, and have it mean something. The hope that gives to younger people that they can marry the person they love.
Progress on this journey often comes in small increments. Sometimes 2 steps forward, 1 step back, propelled by the persistent effort of dedicated citizens. And then sometimes there are days like this, when that slow, steady effort is rewarded with justice that arrives like a thunderbolt. As soon as I finished speaking about marriage equality, this major civil rights victory, I had to go to South Carolina to address a group of people still reeling from this horrific act of violence and racism.
Overnight, this historic church, which has played such a symbolic role in the struggle of African Americans, was the scene of prayers and of vigils.
Hearing about the violence in Charleston, in a church no less, where parishioners were gathered to pray, was just so incredibly devastating. It just stopped you in your tracks.
So we hustled to join Base Andrews to head down to Charleston. And on the way, I thought a lot about Reverend Pinckney, about what he'd stood for, the work he'd done as a leader in his state, fighting for justice and equality. My challenge as president is, how do I express grief and heartbreak over this tragedy while still offering a sense of hope? How do I persuade people that even in our darkest moments, the never-ending quest for equality and justice is worthwhile? I begin to think about the families of the slain during the shooter's arraignment who had said to the shooter, "We forgive you," conferring grace upon this person who's done this terrible act. This whole week I've been reflecting on this idea of grace. The grace of the families who lost loved ones. The grace that Reverend Pinckney would preach about in his sermons.
The grace described in one of my favorite hymnals, the one we all know.
I've got all the clergy behind me as I'm delivering this eulogy. And as I get to the point where I'm talking about Amazing Grace, I feel moved to try and sing it. I'd thought about it before, but I wasn't quite sure whether I could pull it off. And that's why you can see a little bit of a pause before I start singing.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.
I knew that if I just hit the first bar, then the organ was going to come in behind me. The clergy would stand. The congregation would join in. That it would no longer just be about my voice, but it would be about all of our voices together, lifting each other up.
That day with the families who lost their loved ones was so heavy, so sad, and yet it was somehow so hopeful. It wasn't just that Barack gave a great speech. The spirit of those families in the face of such tragedy lifted us all up.
It was their strength, not my strength, that I was relying on. It was their grace that then bathed me in grace.
Not long after we'd returned to the White House, thousands of people were gathering in front, all of them cheering and laughing and celebrating love has won. Our team had lit up the White House in the colors of the LGBT flag, and it was such a magnificent sight.
I certainly never in my wildest dreams thought I would end up at the Supreme Court with a case named after me. Here was this incredibly visible sign that not only did we belong, not only were we equal under the Constitution when it comes to marriage equality, we had a president, we had an administration who clearly said, you belong, we want you, we care for you, we protect you.
From my view out the window, I could see a giant party. So I decided I wanted to join the celebration. We sneaked our way outside where no one could see us, and we just took it all in. Change was in the air. I'll never forget that moment.
There's so much more work to be done to extend the full promise of America to every American. But today we can say, in no uncertain terms, that we've made our union a little more perfect.